So, what if a nation's greatest collection of wisdom was also its most flawed? Today, we're going to dive into the really fascinating world of Pashtun proverbs. We're going to see how a cultural treasure, one that was painstakingly collected over a century, might actually need to be saved from its own saviors. Let's get right into it. You know, this quote right here, it gets straight to the heart of the matter. In Pashtun society, proverbs aren't just these cute little sayings you find in a fortune cookie. No, they're a measure of wisdom, a really sharp tool for communication, and honestly, a sign of a quick mind. Speaking in proverbs means you're speaking with authority, with a deep connection to your culture. And this is not some ancient history we're talking about. These proverbs are alive and kicking today. You hear them everywhere, in the hustle and bustle of the bazaars, in quiet moments at home, even in the scripts of modern radio and TV dramas. They are a constant, living, breathing part of the culture. Okay, to really wrap our heads around what's going on, we need to get two key terms down. First, you've got parameography. Think of it as just collecting, writing the proverbs down, making a list. Then there's parameology. That's the deep dive, the analytical study of them, where they came from, what they mean, and how people actually use them in real life. And that difference, it's everything. Because Pashto proverb scholarship has been kind of stuck on step one for way too long. So first, let's just take a moment and appreciate the absolutely monumental effort that went into collecting this treasure of wisdom in the first place. I mean, this has been a long, long journey. It started way back in 1876 with a British colonial officer. Then French scholars picked it up. Eventually, it became more formalized with the Pashto academies in both Kabul and Peshawar. All this incredible work spanning almost 100 years. It all led up to 1975 and the publication of the most comprehensive collection ever, Ruhi Mataluna. Okay, but here's where the story takes a sharp turn, because for all of this impressive work, the collection has some very, very serious cracks in its foundation. So let me ask you this. If proverbs get all their meaning from how they're used, what happens when you just list thousands of them on a page, totally stripped of that context? Well, you end up with a library full of words, but you lose all the wisdom. You get the text, but you miss the soul completely. And this really gets to the core of the flaws we see in most of these collections. The biggest problem by far? A total lack of context. Collectors almost never explained how they got these proverbs, where they got them, or who they got them from. Many were just self-published booklets with basically zero academic standards, and a huge chunk of them are now lost or impossible to find. And what's worse, some of the authors who tried to add background stories, well, they might have just made them up. To really see what I mean, let's look at a case study. And there is no better example of this whole problem than the flawed crown jewel of Pashto proverb collections, Ruhi Matluan. But first, you have to appreciate the sheer scale of this thing. Over 12,000 proverbs, all compiled in two massive volumes. It is, by a huge margin, the most important and comprehensive collection of Pashto proverbs that exists. It's a truly monumental achievement. And this brings us to its really complicated legacy. On the one hand, it's an undeniable national treasure. It's the most comprehensive, the most accessible, and it even pulled together 9 earlier works all in one place. But on the other hand, it is a deeply flawed piece of academic work. It's full of repetitions, it has zero context, it's organized in a really messy way, and, as we're about to see, it suffers from some very serious bias. And this is so important, because you have to ask, whose wisdom are we actually reading here? The compiler himself called women and peasants the true preservers of this tradition. And yet, guess how many women are listed as contributors? 0. Not a single one. Peasants were also massively left out because of illiteracy. Then there's a huge regional bias and some really inconsistent censorship. For instance, proverbs that were offensive to certain tribes, they got taken out. But ones about women, peasants, and other ethnic groups, they were left right in. So this isn't a full picture of the culture, it's a heavily filtered one. One Pashto scholar, Hidayat Tullah Naim, he just absolutely nailed it with his critique. It's so sharp. He said the compiler, Tahir, mixed up this precious treasure with his spear of the pen. What a powerful way to describe reckless, damaging editing. This isn't just some small complaint, it's a serious accusation of scholarly malpractice. So, where on earth do we go from here? Well, the solution is in a simple but really powerful idea. It's time to put the folk back into folklore. This isn't a new idea, by the way. It's a famous call to action from some folklorists way back in 1964. The point is simple. We have to stop just collecting these dry texts and start trying to understand how real people, the folk, actually use this wisdom. Because the true meaning of a proverb is in the using, not just in the words themselves. And this brings us right back to those two key terms from the beginning. It is time for pastoral Proverbs scholarship to finally move beyond simple collecting, that's paramiography, and start the real work of studying and analyzing, paramiology. And that shift is long, long overdue. But it's not enough to just point out all the flaws. The source material for this explainer also gives us a clear and pretty exciting path forward for actually restoring this national treasure. So what's the plan? Well, here are 5 steps to revive this incredible work. Step 1, recompile it. Clean it up, get rid of all the repetitions, add some cross-referencing. Step 2, update it. Add all the proverbs that were left out the first time around. Step 3, and this is the big one, add context. Explain what the proverbs actually mean and how they're used. And finally, steps 4 and 5 are all about bringing it into the 21st century. Digitize the whole thing and create a living, searchable archive where people can comment, add new proverbs, and explain them. This turns a static book into a dynamic cultural resource for absolutely everyone. But as we think about giving this treasure a new life, we're left with a really tough question. What do we do with the parts of our heritage that don't exactly line up with our modern values? Should these offensive proverbs be censored, or should they be preserved, flaws and all, for the sake of historical authenticity? It's a dilemma every culture has to face, and it's one that's definitely worth thinking about long after this explainer is over.